Twins is a novel by Scott Smith that was released in July 2006. The film of the same name was released in 2008 and is relatively faithful to the novel. However, where the novel received high praise, the film has been criticised. This is a good example, I think, of situations where a story is just better told via a novel or other written media, as opposed to a more visual storytelling medium. This is because the film had to leave out a lot of detail that the novel portrayed easily. It's that level of detail that grounded readers deeply into the story. By staying inside the heads of the main characters as they tried to understand their situation and devise a means of escape, Smith was able to effectively create a very tense and terrifying atmosphere. An atmosphere that sadly just couldn't be reproduced by a solely visual medium. The story is set in Mexico and focuses on a group of tourists who are looking for one of the group's brothers who recently went missing in the area. They find themselves on top of a vine-covered hill / temple, don't worry, I'll get to that, where they are kept by armed villagers. While they're trapped, the vines that cover the hill / temple reveal that they are no ordinary plants. I'm not going to cover every single change between the book and the film. I'm only going to cover changes that I feel affected the story, for good or ill. So first of all, the most obvious change is the setting. The book constantly refers to the location as a hill. However, in the film, the protagonists find themselves trapped on top of an ancient Mayan temple. I believe this change was put in place to make the setting more dramatic, and it does work to an extent. As I said before, the film does struggle to ramp up the tension, but this very dramatic and visually interesting setting certainly helps. I can only imagine if the film had chosen to stay true to the novel setting of a hill, it probably would have been a bit duller. The pacing has changed as well from book to film. The book is a slow burn, especially at the beginning, whereas the film puts our protagonist onto the temple very quickly. Again, I don't disagree with the change, since if the film had had a slower start, I feel it would have only bored the audience, and they also have a lot less time than books do. But with the book, the slow start really helped increase the tension. There's one scene in particular in the book where the protagonists are walking through a Mayan village and time is spent there noticing how eerie the setting is and how the locals react to the protagonists by mostly ignoring them. It gave me vibes of Bram Stoker's Dracula when Harker is on his way to the castle and the locals are acting very strangely towards him. You get the same build-up of tension here, that you know something is wrong, you know something is coming, but at this point you don't know what. It also really helps build up the feelings of isolation around the main characters. In the book as well, the body of the missing brother is located relatively quickly, as well as signs that there is something deeply wrong here. Piles of human bones are pretty much a dead giveaway. Our protagonist also noticed that the group that the missing brother was with were trying to warn other travellers away from the hill, which again only serves to ramp up the tension, as we have no idea why they've died there or why they would want to warn people away from the location. The attempt at warning also signifies that their deaths were not instant or even particularly quick. These people had time to think about what was happening to them and to rationalise that they wanted to protect other people from this fate, and also that they had given up on escape themselves, which again builds a lot of tension and mystery, because these people are just sitting at the bottom of the hill. There's nothing keeping them there. And while this is touched on in the film, it's not explored in the same way. The book is a lot more about the slow burn and raising the tension, as well as the sense of dread and inevitability, as opposed to a rapid, sudden danger, which the film focuses on. In the book, one of the tourists suffers a very serious injury. He breaks his back, and as anyone in that situation would be, he is incredibly vocal about how much this hurts. His screaming goes on for days in the book. It actually put me in mind of the movie The Beach, where a fatally injured individual wouldn't stop screaming and had to be carried away by the other islanders to be out of earshot so they wouldn't have to listen to him as he died. However, in this book, moving the injured tourist is out of the question, and our protagonists simply have to endure his screaming. Again, this drives home feelings of doom and inevitability. This man is going to die. There is nothing they can do about it. They can't ease his pain or end his suffering. It really gives the story a strong feeling of oppression, and I know I'm repeating myself, but it raises the tension again. In the film, there is no screaming, and while on one hand I can understand why this was cut, practically having somebody scream throughout the majority of the film is not a wise idea. But from a creative standpoint, it feels like another lost opportunity. The film also includes a scene where one of the villagers, a child, comes into contact with the vines, causing the villagers to freak out and shoot the kid. This scene is not in the book, and I think it was inserted as a way to demonstrate just how frightened of the vine the villagers are, that they would go so far as to kill a child. However, while the scene was probably designed to increase the tension and make the audience question what on earth was going on, all it did was feel like gratuitous child murder. It felt clunky compared to the book's slow burn and constantly rising tension and the feeling of inevitability. This was a really clumsy way to try and achieve the same end, and ultimately it failed. The vine itself is also far more threatening in the book. In the book, it's made pretty clear that the vine is self-aware. It plots and schemes, such as when it effectively causes the accident where the chap broke his back. There's also the business of the vine mimicking voices, which is done far more in the book and to a much greater effect. This action is done to confirm that the vine itself is self-aware because it is very selective in what it mimics. It really thinks about the words and phrases that are going to be most effective in mentally breaking down its prey. To do this, the vine had to, first of all, understand human language with all its subtleties and nuances, which it couldn't if it wasn't an intelligent predator. In my opinion, this really elevates the vine as a threat. It shows that the vine is more than just a simply overgrown Venus flytrap. This is a thinking, self-aware creature that is out to hurt and kill these people. It's not a mindless animal, plant in this case. Its actions are deliberate. I also couldn't help but get a sense that the vine took a perverse sense of joy out of torturing these people. I mean, why else would it choose to repeat the American tourist calling the German tourist a Nazi? Overall, the book gave a very otherworldly feeling to the vine. It didn't feel like a plant. I can only think to compare it to The Happening, a film in which plants release pollen which causes humans to fatally self-harm. In that film, the plants still felt like plants. The pollen release was triggered by sound vibrations. It wasn't deliberate. There was no thought or malice behind it. It felt far more defensive. Whereas the vine in the ruins, at least in the book, feels very, very different. The ending was also changed. In the book, there was no happy ending. Characters are murdered during the night, characters are shot when they try and escape, and the lone survivor at the end purposely puts herself at the bottom of the hill as a warning to others before taking her own life, rather than letting the vine kill her. Even worse, as she's dying, the vine moves her, preventing her intention of acting as a warning and reinforcing the fact that the vine is incredibly aware of what it's doing. This also reinforces that the vine is malicious, as it moved her before she died. It made sure she knew that she had failed. In the film, one of the characters survives, escapes the vine, and effectively wins, though the ending is a bit abrupt and feels generally unsatisfying, especially if you've read the book. While I was expecting the ending of the film to differ, as the majority of films tend to veer more towards a happy, in quotation marks, ending, with at least one survivor who can escape and contact the authorities to potentially put an end to the threat, I was disappointed. I confess that part of me was looking forward to watching the authorities return with flamethrowers and burn the vine alive. In short, read the book, it's better. While the film isn't bad, it is mediocre, especially if you watch it after reading the book. The book builds tension better, has far more compelling atmosphere, and has far more extensively developed characters, including the vine. The slow burn of the book is incredibly effective, to the point where when the vine is eventually revealed, it is genuinely scary. It's an inescapable, inevitable doom. The fact that it's a plant and is still made to feel this way shows just how effective the book was. Unfortunately, the film just doesn't build tension in the same way. It can't build tension in the same way due to its medium, and thus the story suffers as a result. There was no real sense of build-up, the vine threat doesn't feel very convincing, and the ending is pretty unrewarding. So yeah, read the book. You'll thank me later.